Has a woman ever made you feel invisible, like you don't exist? That silence that drives you crazy, that makes you question every word you said. Most men make a fatal mistake at that moment. They despair, and in that desperation they surrender all their power, destroy attraction, and lose any trace of respect. They think they're showing interest, when in reality they're displaying a weakness she can smell from miles away. Today we're not going to talk about romance, we're going to talk about power and strategy. I'm going to reveal to you the exact code, inspired by the thinking of Machiavelli, for acting when a woman ignores you. If you don't learn to control this mind game, I guarantee you'll continue to be manipulated and discarded. Stay until the end if you want to stop being the pawn and become the king. Silence as a test of emotional strength. An ordinary man, when faced with a woman's silence, panics. His mind becomes a whirlwind of insecurities, and every hour that passes without a message from her is torture. What did I do wrong? Is she with someone else? He wonders, as his thumb trembles over the call button. This is the first mistake, the first lost battle in a war he didn't even know he was fighting. What he doesn't understand is that this silence, more often than not, isn't a simple act of disinterest. It's a calculated move, a test of his strength. She has launched a probe into the emotional battlefield to measure the solidity of his castle. Every desperate message, every anxious call, is a crack that appears in his walls, revealing that his inner peace and validation depend on her. A true strategist, a man who understands power, knows that a woman's silence is a minefield. It's not about her, it's about her emotional control. It's the first test of the mind game, and most men fail it miserably, handing over the keys to their kingdom without a fight. This is where we separate the boys from the men. The weak man sees silence and reacts with emotion. The superior man sees it and responds with strategy. This is a principle as old as war itself, a lesson Machiavelli would teach not to a prince, but to any man who wishes to navigate the complex waters of modern relationships. She ignores you to see if you are reactive, to gauge how much she affects you, to discover whether your center of gravity lies in yourself or in her. It is a subtle form of manipulation that allows her to take the measure of your character. If you despair, you are communicating to her, wordlessly, that she is the prize and you the contestant. You are telling her that your mood is a switch she can turn on and off at will. The correct male strategy is not to ignore her out of revenge, but to understand that it is a move on the chessboard. Your calculated indifference, your continued focus on your own life, is not an act of spite. It is a declaration of power. It shows that the king doesn't abandon his throne just because a guest decides not to show up to the ball. The big mistake is personalizing silence, believing its absence is a referendum on your value as a man. The truth is colder and more tactical. It's a filtering tool. Women, especially attractive ones, are bombarded with attention. How do they distinguish the lion from the hyenas? By testing their mettle. Hyenas stir, complain, and demand. The lion watches, waits, and holds his ground. When a man demonstrates steely emotional control, when her silence doesn't disrupt his course or his peace, he automatically rises above 99% of his competitors. He gains a respect that no amount of gifts or pleading could buy. A high-value man doesn't need an immediate answer because his value isn't up for debate. He operates from a framework of abundance, not scarcity. His life is an empire of purpose, and she's welcome to participate, but her absence won't stop the march of the legions. This is the real mind game, making your silence more powerful than hers. Think of it as a hostile negotiation. The first one to show need loses. If she backs off and you advance with an avalanche of attention, you've just given her the entire advantage. You've shown her your cards, your fears, and your dependency. Now she dictates the terms. The most potent male strategy is to mirror and amplify strategic disinterest. It takes her a day to respond. It takes you a day and a half. She cancels one plan. You already have two others in the works. You don't tell her. You don't post it for her to see. You just live it. This isn't a child's play of who cares less. It's a demonstration that your universe is vast and your time is valuable. It's a form of positive manipulation, if you will, where you manipulate her perception of your status and independence. You're rewriting the rules of power, proving that you're not just a spectator in her movie, but the director of yours. She must feel she has to put in the effort to get a role in your life, not the other way around. So, the next time you face the wall of her silence, don't see it as an affront, but as an opportunity. It's the perfect time to evaluate your own framework. Does your happiness depend on receiving a message? If the answer is yes, you have more important work to do than chasing her, rebuilding your own empire. This is Machiavelli's true legacy applied to relationships. Power isn't asked, for it's taken, and it's often taken silently, with patience, and with an unwavering display of emotional self-sufficiency. A high-value man understands that a woman's silence is an interrogation. The question is, are you the nervous suspect who confesses everything under pressure, or the imperturbable agent who controls the room? Be careful though, not every silence is a test of power. Sometimes, the reasons are different, and confusing the scenario can be a fatal error in this mental game. It's crucial to learn to distinguish the different forms of silence to know what counteroffensive to apply. Topic 2. Types of silence. The novice strategist believes that every silence is a declaration of war and responds with all his might, wasting resources and revealing his position. The master, on the other hand, knows that silence is a language in itself, with distinct dialects and meanings. Before planning your counteroffensive, you must be an expert translator. Rushing into action without a precise diagnosis is the mark of an amateur, a man driven by panic rather than intelligence. True masculine strategy isn't based on a one-size-fits-all answer, but on the ability to read the battlefield and adapt tactics. Mistaking a probing silence for a refusal is like mistaking an invitation to a duel for an execution order. Both you can kill you, but in very different ways. Your power lies not in the brute force of your response, but in the surgical precision of your analysis. This is mental gaming at its finest. Not just playing, but understanding the game being played. The first type, and the most common in the female arsenal, is the testing silence. This is the classic subtle manipulation move, designed to gauge your emotional control. It usually appears out of nowhere, just when the interaction is flowing and positive. It's a sudden change in temperature, a radiant sun suddenly covered by a cloud. The goal is simple: to throw you off balance, make you hesitate, and provoke you into chasing. She's testing the fences of your reality to see if they're electric. She wants to know if you're a high-value man whose framework is solid, or if you're a house of cards that crumbles with a mere breeze of indifference. The response to this silence we've already outlined: unflappable calm, a continued focus on your own mission. It's recognizing the bait and refusing to bite. By doing so, you not only pass the test, but you increase your value in her eyes. You demonstrate, without a single word, that your piece is not for rent and that respect is earned, not demanded. The second type is processing silence. Here, self-centeredness is your worst enemy. An inexperienced man thinks everything revolves around him, and if she pulls away, it must be because of something he did. But the truth is, she has her own universe of problems: stress at work, family dramas, personal insecurities. This silence isn't a power play against you, but a necessary retreat into her own cave to deal with her demons. The signs are different. There's no deliberate coldness, just distraction. She may have even mentioned in passing that she was overwhelmed. In this scenario, a masculine strategy of total indifference makes you look like a sociopath without empathy. Emotional control here is demonstrated with patience and minimal pressure. A short, supportive message like "you seem busy, we'll talk when you're calmer" is a master move. You grant her the space she needs, demonstrating maturity and earning respect based on understanding, not confrontation. Finally, we come to the harshest and most definitive type: the rejection silence. There's no game here, no test, no hidden strategy. It's the end of the road. The signs are unmistakable and brutal. Monosyllabic, cold, curt answers. It takes days for her to respond to a simple "how are you" with a "fine." She asks no questions, invests no energy, offers nothing. The interaction is dead, and she's simply being too polite or cowardly to sign the death certificate. To persist here is disrespectful to yourself. It's the ultimate expression of neediness and lack of options. A high-value man understands that his time and energy are his most precious assets, and he doesn't waste them on a losing cause. His power lies in his ability to cut his losses and withdraw with dignity. No lesson from Machiavelli can revive dead interest. The only move is a strategic and complete retreat to preserve your honor. Now that you can distinguish between a feint, a tactical retreat, and an unconditional surrender, you're in a position of advantage. You're no longer a blind soldier shooting in the dark. You're a commander with a map of enemy territory. Recognizing the type of silence you're facing allows you to calibrate your response, saving energy and maximizing your impact. But in most skirmishes in this mind game, you'll face probing silence. It's the most common move to screen men. And for this specific scenario, there's a master move, a technique that not only neutralizes the attack, but reverses the power dynamic so subtly that she won't even know what hit her. It's a strategy that will force her to seek your validation. Okay, understood. Moving on to the master move. Here is the textual production for Topic 3. Topic 3. The master move, reflecting energy. This is where the apprentice becomes the master. Once you've diagnosed the type of silence, particularly the testing silence, you need a response that not only defends you but gives you the upper hand. The master move is neither the furious attack nor the cowardly retreat. It's the subtle art of mirroring energy. Think of it as a law of social physics. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. In the mental game of attraction, the one who invests disproportionately loses. The one who shows the most desire, the most anxiety, the most need, cedes all the power. The most elegant and lethal male strategy, therefore, is to become a mirror. You don't act, you react. You don't initiate, you calibrate. You give back to her exactly the same energy and level of investment that she gives you. This isn't a childish game of "you ignore me, I'll ignore you." It's high-level non-verbal communication. You're saying, "I operate on your terms. I'm not your fan, I'm your equal." Let's look at the most common application: response time. She sends you a message and then disappears for 6 hours, only to reply with something casual. The average man, who's been waiting like an addict on his fix, responds within 30 seconds. Fatal mistake. He's just shouted his need to the world. A high-value man, on the other hand, understands the rhythm of power. He sees the message, but doesn't feel the urgency to respond. He's immersed in his work, at the gym, in a conversation with friends. When he finally responds, perhaps 7 or 8 hours later, his reply is equally casual. He doesn't do it out of spite, but as a natural byproduct of living a full life. This emotional control is disconcerting to a woman accustomed to being the center of a man's universe. She projects an aura of mystery and self-sufficiency. The underlying message is clear: my world doesn't stop and wait for you, and nothing is more attractive than a man whose world is a moving empire. This strategy becomes even more potent when applied to plans and commitments. Let's say you have a date planned. An hour before, she cancels with a vague excuse. The man, without a strategy, crumbles. "Don't worry," he says, "we can meet tomorrow or this weekend, whenever you want." In that instant, he's lost all respect. He's communicated that her time is worthless and that he's a secondary option. The correct male strategy is a show of polite indifference. "I understand, we'll do it another time." Period. You offer no alternatives, you show no disappointment, and what do? You go on with your night. You call a friend. Go to that bar you've been wanting to check out. You work on your project. You live. The next time she proposes a plan, your schedule will no longer be completely open. She'll have to find space in your life. This way, you're not demanding respect. You're commanding it through your actions, which is the only way it's truly earned. Why is this mirroring tactic so effective? Because, as a true disciple of Machiavelli knows, perception is reality. By reflecting her level of investment, you force her to confront her own behavior from an external perspective. It's a form of interactional frame manipulation. You remove her from the throne she's accustomed to sitting on and place her in a chair across the table, as an equal. This creates a powerful cognitive dissonance. She's programmed to have men pursue her, flatter her, and tolerate her low effort. Your calm, your measured retort, your apparent disinterest make her the one who must now decipher the enigma. You become the prize. The mental game is reversed. Now she's the one analyzing your moves, the one feeling the slight anxiety of uncertainty. And the moment she starts thinking about how to win your attention, you've gained control. But beware, and this is the most important warning you'll ever receive. You can't fake this strategy. If you're at home, checking your phone every 5 minutes, consumed by rage and anxiety, but forcing yourself not to respond, your energy will betray you. Sooner or later, you'll make a mistake, say something needy, and the whole house of cards will come tumbling down. The reflection of power is only authentic when it's a consequence of real power. Strategic indifference must be backed up by a genuinely interesting life and a consuming purpose. Being a high-value man isn't a role you play, it's who you are. And this brings us to the true source of all power in relationships. What you do with the time and energy you regain when you stop chasing. Because it's in that emptiness that true empire is built. Topic 4. Building self-value during silence. The average man perceives her silence as a void he must fill with anxiety and desperation. The superior man sees it for what it truly is, a gift. It is the gift of time, the most valuable resource you possess, free from distractions and external demands. Every minute you spend obsessing over why she hasn't responded is a minute stolen from building your own empire. The real mind game isn't fought on a phone screen, it's won in the silence of your own discipline. It's in the gym at 6 a.m., in the library devouring books, in the office closing a deal. A high-value man understands that the ultimate source of power is not the control he exerts over a woman, but the dominance he has over himself. His silence is the perfect training ground for forging an unbreakable character, a golden opportunity to sharpen your blade while your opponent isn't looking. This value building isn't an abstract, ethereal concept. It's a concrete and measurable, masculine strategy, founded on solid pillars. First, the professional and financial pillar. While she's silent, you're speaking the language of money and ambition. You're acquiring that new skill, launching that personal project, striving for that promotion. Every step you take toward financial independence is a higher wall in your fortress. Second, the physical pillar. Your body is your vehicle in this world. Don't treat it like garbage. The gym isn't for vanity, it's for discipline. The body is a metaphor for building your mind. This gives you an energy and confidence that no words can articulate. Third, your social pillar. A king without allies is a dead king. Cultivate your circle of men, your friendships, your connections. The respect you earn in the men's arena has a weight and solidity that female attention can never match. When you truly immerse yourself in this process, a metamorphosis occurs. You stop being the actor playing the role of an interesting man and become the director of a fascinating life. Your energy changes radically. You no longer convey need, but purpose. You become genuinely scarce, not because you're applying a technique, but because your time and attention are actually invested in more important things. This is the highest and most ethical form of manipulation. You manipulate yourself to become the best version possible. A high-value man doesn't waste time chasing butterflies. He builds a garden so spectacular that butterflies beg to enter. Your personal development is that garden, and the power that emanates from a man focused on his mission is a natural magnet for attraction. You stop chasing, and without realizing it, you start being chased. Herein lies a cold truth that Machiavelli would applaud. The primary goal of this strategy isn't for her to come back. That's a mere bonus, a pleasant side effect. The real prize is building a life so full and fulfilling that her return or permanent absence has minimal impact on your state of emotional control. When you reach that point of genuine indifference, where her validation is no longer the fuel you need, that's precisely when you become irresistible. It's the paradox of desire. Human beings crave that which they cannot fully possess and deeply respect the power that doesn't seek their approval. Investing in yourself is the only strategy that guarantees victory, because even if you lose the woman, you gain yourself, and that's the only victory that truly matters in the grand scheme of life. And then, like clockwork, it happens. After weeks of your productive silence, while you're at the top of your game, focused on your empire, your phone vibrates. It's a casual text. "Hi, how have you been?" The weak man sees this as the finish line. He celebrates. He thinks he's won. Grave mistake. This isn't victory. It's the beginning of the final level, the most sophisticated test of the entire mental game. All the power, all the respect you've built up through sweat and discipline can evaporate in an instant with an over-enthusiastic response. You've patiently built the throne in her absence. The question now is whether you'll be man enough not to abandon it the moment she decides to return to court. Topic 5. The test of return, and then it happens. At the height of your productivity, when she's already become an afterthought in your focused mind, the phone vibrates. It's her. The message is almost always the same. A casual attempt at re-entry, a "hello, lost one," or "I remembered you today." For the common man, this is the moment of euphoria, of instant validation. He believes he's won, that his wait and suffering have been worth it. And it is at this precise moment of perceived triumph that he makes the most devastating mistake. Her return isn't a white flag of surrender. It's a reconnaissance mission. She's sending a patrol to test your defenses, to see if the empire you've built is made of stone or cardboard. All the power you've amassed is at stake, and your first response will determine whether you remain king or revert to being the court jester. This is the true test of emotional control, fought not in her absence, but in her looming presence. The cardinal sin in this phase of the mind game is enthusiasm. It's responding in 10 seconds with a paragraph that barely fits on the screen. "Hi, so good to hear from you. I've been thinking about you. How are you? We need to talk." By doing this, you instantly communicate that your entire busy life was a sham, that you were simply waiting on the bench, warming up, ready to enter the game at her first call. All the mystery, all the strength, all the image of a high-value man you've so painstakingly cultivated dissipates like smoke. You crack the whip back, proving you're still the same reactive, needy man you were before. You cede power and respect in exchange for a crumb of attention, a pathetic relapse that destroys your entire masculine strategy. The correct response is a masterpiece of calculated indifference, a tactic Machiavelli himself would approve of. First, time. Don't reply immediately. Let her message marinate. Let her experience a bit of the uncertainty you felt. 1 to 5 hours. Let the pace of your life dictate the rhythm of your response. When you finally do answer, be brief, positive, and detached. To her "hello, lost," respond with "all's fine here. Pretty busy. Hope you're doing well." Short, casual, and most importantly, no open-ended questions begging for a follow-up. You acknowledge her message, but you don't stop your world for it. The ball is now in her court. If she wants a conversation, she'll have to make an effort. It's a silent, potent demonstration that your center of gravity is firmly planted in your own life. If you navigate the initial exchange correctly, her next move will invariably be a suggestion of a meet. "We should meet sometime to catch up." Another probe, another test. The desperate man jumps on the opportunity like a hungry lion. "Sure, when can you?" "I'm free all week." Wrong. You've just communicated that your schedule is empty and that she's the priority. A high-value man responds from a frame of time, abundance, and scarcity. "That might be a good idea. I'm having a busy week, but I'll let you know if a slot opens up." The language here is critical. "I'll let you know." This positions you as the guardian of the prize, your time. The decision-making power rests with you. She must adapt to your schedule, not the other way around. It's a subtle but brutal inversion of the power dynamic she's accustomed to. Mastering the art of not relinquishing regained power is what separates men who are successful long-term from those who live in cycles of temporary validation. Her return isn't victory. It's an opportunity to consolidate your new position. Every interaction must reinforce this new framework. You are the prize, and access to you is a privilege. Maintaining this posture over text is the first step. But the true test, the acid test of your transformation, happens face to face. It's easy to be a king in your castle, behind a cell phone screen. But how do you maintain that same energy? that same authority when she's sitting across from you. Passing the test of return in person is what will truly engrave your respect in her mind. And for that, you need a clear strategy for the encounter. Topic 6. How to pass the return test. The battle has shifted. From the digital coldness of texting, we've moved to the visceral battlefield of face-to-face conversation. Here, the mental game is more intense, more subtle. She reads not just your words but your body language, the tone of your voice, the energy you project. The rookie mistake is to think the goal of this encounter is to win her back. False. The goal is to irrefutably prove that your new status as a high-value man isn't a mask, but your new skin. You're not there to impress her, you're there to assess her, to determine if she's worthy of re-entering your world. This shift in mindset is the foundation of all power. You are the host of the meeting, the king in his court. She is the visitor. Act like it, and respect will follow naturally. A superior masculine strategy controls the variables. The logistics of the meeting are your first demonstration of power. You choose the place and time. The location should be casual, convenient for you, on or near your territory, a quiet cafe or bar, never a long formal dinner. Most importantly, you establish a time limit from the start. When inviting her, your language is precise. Let's have coffee. Tuesday at 7, I have to leave by 8:30. This simple act accomplishes two things. It communicates that your time is scarce and valuable, and it removes the pressure, creating a frame of urgency and mystery. It demonstrates absolute emotional control. You have a mission, an agenda. She is a pleasant stop on your journey, not the final destination. The framework of the interaction is set in your favor before a single word is exchanged. Once in the encounter, your demeanor should be that of a calm and curious observer. The golden rule: let her talk 80% of the time. A man who talks too much reveals need. Ask open questions, show genuine but detached interest. When it's your turn to talk, the trap is to talk about the two of you or the past. Avoid that topic like the plague. Talk about your purpose, your projects, your passions, the very things you worked to build during her silence. You're not trying to recreate an old connection. You're presenting her with a new, higher reality. This is a Machiavellian move. You appear open and charismatic, but your inner state remains protected and your agenda intact. She should leave the encounter knowing more about what you do and what you're passionate about than how you feel about her. Your nonverbal language speaks louder than your words. Maintain a relaxed posture, lean back in your seat, and take up your space. Eye contact should be firm but not intimidating. Smile but not in a nervous way. Project calm. Physical contact should be almost non-existent. A cordial hello and goodbye are sufficient. And the final move, checkmate, is being the first to end the meeting. When the time you set approaches, look at your watch and calmly say, "Well, it was nice seeing you, but I have to go." You get up first, you finish. This act is a demonstration of steely discipline. It cements your power, demonstrates impeccable emotional control, and almost always leaves her wanting more. You've given her a taste of your new world and then taken it away, creating the tension necessary for her to begin to value and want to earn your time. This strategy is foolproof for passing the test and consolidating respect when dealing with a woman who has a genuine interest but was testing your strength. However, a well-rounded strategist must know that not all wars can be won or must be fought. You must have the acuity to recognize when you're not in a test, but rather in a cycle of toxic manipulation. Some women aren't looking for a high-value man, they're looking for entertainment, drama, and the validation they get from feeling they can control a man. For these cases, where silence and backtracking are a pattern of psychological torture, a different masculine strategy is needed. A final option is needed, one that protects your most precious asset, your peace of mind. Topic 7. Complete and permanent retirement. Nuclear option. We've discussed tactics, counterattacks, and strategic positioning. But every great general, every Machiavelli prince, knows that there are battles that cannot be won. Territories so poisoned that they will only drain their armies and their spirit. When you identify that you are no longer in a simple mind game, but in a campaign of deliberate psychological manipulation and torture, the conventional rules of engagement become obsolete. It is here that you activate the ultimate expression of power and self-preservation, the nuclear option. The complete, total, and permanent withdrawal. This is not an act of anger or weakness. On the contrary, it is the coldest, most calculated, and most strategic decision a man can make, to declare the game itself unworthy of your participation and to protect your kingdom, which is your peace of mind. How do you know when it's time to push the red button? The signs are clear and unmistakable to the man who dares to look the truth in the face. This isn't a one-time test of strength. This is a vicious pattern, a cycle of emotional sadism. She disappears for weeks, leaving you in the dark, then reappears with overwhelming intensity, only to vanish again as soon as she gets her dose of validation. It's the constant gaslighting, making you question your own sanity. It's the blatant disrespect for your time, your feelings, and your boundaries. This isn't an assessment of your worth, it's an exploitation of your patience. This woman isn't a potential mate, she's an emotional vampire, and your energy is the lifeblood she feeds on. To maintain any kind of contact is to allow the torture to continue. The only way to win is to refuse to play. The execution of this masculine strategy must be as ruthless as the decision itself. You don't announce your departure. You don't send a long paragraph explaining your reasons, seeking closure, or hoping she'll change. Doing so is a final act of weakness, a final plea for attention. The nuclear option is executed in absolute silence. You simply vanish. You block her number. You block her on all social media. You delete contact. You delete chat history. You become a ghost. Your absolute silence is the most powerful message you can send. It communicates with brutal clarity. In my reality, you no longer exist. This act of silent disappearance is a demonstration of supreme power because it offers her no drama to feed on, no reaction to manipulate, no hook with which to lure you back. As a result of this decision, you will experience something you may have forgotten: peace. The mental space her chaos occupied is now free for you to fill with your purpose. Your energy and focus will return. But beware, the predator, deprived of her prey, will often try to return. She may try to contact you from an unknown number, a fake profile, or through mutual friends. This is called hoovering, the attempt to suck you back into the vortex. Your resolve here must be steely. Any response, even a negative and angry one, is a victory for her, as it demonstrates that she can still evoke a reaction. A high-value man understands that his emotional sovereignty is non-negotiable. His emotional control is demonstrated by his continued and unwavering indifference. You are an impenetrable fortress. The nuclear option is your tool of last resort, an extreme measure for extreme situations. It's the final act of a man who prioritizes his own respect and sanity over any female interaction. It's a strategy that, though harsh, teaches you a fundamental lesson and sets you free forever. By applying it, you recognize that not all women are playing to find a mate. Some are simply playing with fire for pure entertainment, not caring who gets burned in the process. And this insight leads us to the final and most important truth of this entire game, a conclusion that, once understood, will change the way you invest your energy forever. Topic 8. The final truth. After all the strategies, all the lessons on power and emotional control, we arrive at the center of the labyrinth, at the final truth that governs the entire mental game. And the truth is this: cold and brutal, a significant portion of the relationship world is not about seeking connection, but about seeking entertainment. You enter the scene thinking you're in a selection process to be a partner, when, in reality, to her, you're just the protagonist of the season's drama. The silence, the tests, the manipulation, these are often not a prelude to love, but the substance of the interaction itself. Drama is not a means to an end. Drama is the end. Understanding that you can simply be a pastime, an emotional diversion, is the final and most liberating step in becoming a true strategist and a high-value man. Think of these women as emotional tourists. They have no intention of building a home with you. They just want to visit your emotional landscape, take a few photos of your turmoil, create a small storm so they can tell the story to their friends, and then move on to the next exotic destination. They crave the rush of the chase, the demonstration of power and rejection, the validation your effort brings. They offer no commitment, only chaos. A high-value man develops a keen instinct for these tourists. He learns that their time, their energy, and most of all, their peace, are a private country with well-guarded borders, not a public amusement park. He becomes the guardian of his own kingdom, and this prioritization of himself is the ultimate expression of self-respect. So why learn these dark arts? Why study Machiavelli's tactics applied to relationships? The answer is the key to your freedom. The purpose of mastering masculine strategy and the mind game isn't to become a master of manipulation. It's to build impenetrable armor against it. Strategies aren't a sword to attack, but a shield to defend. You learn the rules of the toxic game so you can quickly identify those playing the game and discard them from your life with surgical efficiency. The ultimate goal of learning the game is to earn the right to never have to play it again. You become the master of the board, not to keep moving the pieces, but to have the power to turn the table and walk away when the game isn't worth the candle. And what lies beyond the game? Authentic connection. A relationship with a woman of substance, a true partner, isn't built on silent games and power struggles. It's built on clear communication, mutual vulnerability, and, above all, unconditional respect. In a real partnership, power isn't a weapon one uses against the other, but a force both pool together to face the world's challenges. There's no constant need for calculated emotional control, because trust exists. There's no room for manipulation, because honesty is the foundation of everything. This is the true prize, but you can never find it, or be ready for it, until you've proven to yourself, on the battlefield of games, that you are a man of courage who will accept nothing less than the real thing. In short, the path to a full and powerful life in relationships is a paradox. You must master dark psychology to walk freely in the light. You must understand manipulation to become immune to it. This entire masculine strategy boils down to one thing: building your inner power to the point where you are no longer an option at someone else's table. But the man who owns a table, use your knowledge not to control, but to choose. Use your strength to step away from toxic entertainment and invest in what is authentic. Stop being an actor in someone else's emotional circus and become the director of your own destiny. That is the ultimate truth.